So, welcome, screensavers. We are excited today to welcome a very special guest. You've seen him on Better Call Saul, Cobra Kai, Law Order SVU, and many other great projects, including a movie from this year that we loved, Vengeance, where he plays Officer Mike. Please welcome to the show, Grayson Berry. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's an honor.
How you doing today?
Man, I'm great. As I was telling you guys pre-roll, I got out of a parking ticket today, so life is pretty good. Started off
Yeah,
on the right foot this morning.
I love it when people try to own space and then get mad at you for being on it. We absolutely loved Vengeance this year. So we just wanted to know, how did you get involved with the project? What was that onboarding process like?
Sure. What a fascinating project. What a great script written by BJ Novak. So the short story is, auditioned on tape like everything else. Callback was in Albuquerque with BJ, and then they'd sort of match up, Mike's and Dan's to find chemistry and all that fun stuff. And Ben Whitehair, who I was lucky enough to play with that day, we just had great chemistry. We pick each other up in the audition. You could tell we were sort of rooting for each other, and so it just really worked on that level. And we both walked out together and had a pretty good feeling. As actors, you never think that's going to equate to anything, but we were like, hey man, hope we get to work together again. Hope we see each other on set. Have a great day. So that happened, and then I think the really interesting thing about the process was, as you guys know, so we started shooting. In March of 2020, right? Like right on the cusp. And I had a play that I was in where I was shooting closing night like the next day. So I had to shoot Vengeance, get on a plane, get on stage, and then we wrapped the show. And sure enough, on that Monday, the world shut down. So it was
Oh,
the same
yeah.
day, and so then Vengeance shut, we kept thinking they were going to keep going. And then, October rolls around. So that's, whatever, how many, 6 months, I guess. And credit to the production for coming back online and finishing. But at that point, things had really changed. For instance, the guy who played Dan, he shows up and his hair's down, down here. He's got a
Yeah.
full Grizzly Adams beard. He's in Los Angeles. So, but yeah, that's basically the story.
Oh well, I'm sure it took a very long time in the production, and I gotta say it was well worth it for us. We really liked it, and it's funny that you talk about. I thought one of the most impressive performance aspects of the movie is your rhythm, your cadence, and your like dialogue partnership with Ben Whitehair, who plays Officer Dan. That was really great. And so I was going to ask, how did you two prepare to have this really impressive timing and tempo that you did?
Well, guys, I think the great part about shooting a big budget film is that you have a whole lot of time, which is something we don't have the fortune of having in our low budget world a lot of the time. It's a couple of takes and we got to go, we got to move. With something like a Blumhouse film, we shot that scene, every conceivable way possible. In fact, this was fascinating to me. This has never happened. So we shot it as a comedy, and which was a blast, and a little bit of improv here and there, etc. And then Jason Blum came in and said, "Let's shoot it as a drama."
Oh,
And that was a trip. So we shot it straight for a few takes, which I found fascinating to make that turn, and was fascinated by what they chose to keep, etc. But Ben and I, again, when it's right, it's right, and I think Ben was regaling me with his dad jokes all day, these great like bad uncle jokes. And so we were just loose, just having fun and making the stand-ins laugh, and just we were already in character, and just a super supportive atmosphere. And BJ was what a nice guy, what a great guy. He couldn't have been better to work with.
yeah. What was it like working with him on set? As a director, him as a writer.
Well, I mean, what a challenge he has, right? So he's the lead in the film, he's directing the film, and he's directing us. So watching him, he'd watch us as himself in the scene, and then he'd go back and like work Video Village, watch the takes on repeat, and then come back, and then he'd have to direct himself. So
Right.
he had kind of a second set of eyes on set that helped him do that. But I just found that fascinating, watching that juggling act of him sort of in that chair in that scene, watching us like, okay, like that, keep that, lose that, add that, and then his own performance, of course. But yeah, just and I think the excitement of his directorial debut was coming through too, right?
Right.
Energetically, you could tell he was just everything was the first time, and so everything was kind of precious in that way, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it came out very strong right out of the gate. So that's awesome. So happy to have you here because it's so rare that I get to ask the person who embodied the character about them. So, who is Officer Mike in your eyes? How did you approach embodying him? What does he mean to the story in your terms?
Well, I grew up in Texas, guys. I grew up in Houston, so I don't know if you guys are
Oh, there we are.
you guys are Yankees fans. I guess I'm in trouble today.
We're Sox fans, so not much better. But
Boston fans.
Yeah,
wearing
the
wearing a
mask.
Boston baseball shirt right
Hey,
now.
hey, man, you got our coach. You got Alex Cora.
Oh yeah,
That's
well, of
true.
course.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, if we're being well, we don't have to talk sports right now, but I'll just say, if we're being honest, during that 2017 World Series, there's not a time that AJ Hinch exits the dugout without asking Alex Cora what to do. Just truth. All right. Anyway, so yeah, my point was, you know, I grew up in Texas. I went to a small town. Well, I went to Southwest Texas State for my first 2 years before I transferred out to California.
Mhm.
But we know these guys. We've seen these guys. We run into these guys. I grew up going to Whataburger. Crazy nights in your teenage, beer filled, reverie, waking up with yellow wrappers all over the car and all over. So I knew this guy. I'd talked to this guy before. He probably pulled me over a couple times, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. So it was a pretty easy in that way. And then, I was sort of brushing up on the script before the podcast today, guys, and I think comedy is such a underappreciated and underutilized way of delivering really powerful symbolism and meaning. Right? These
Yeah.
days, everybody wants to hit you over the head. And it's like when you laugh and it's funny, man, your defenses are down, and you can deliver so many more. I don't know, meaning, and I think it's just the script is chock full of those sort of philosophical truisms, right?
Yeah, to make somebody laugh and to make somebody feel are separately miracles, but together that's a divine power. So I totally agree with that. As an actor, what is your approach to learning dialogue?
Um, it's really basic. I wish it was exciting. It's like the way I do it, man, and because time is sort of the essence, is I learned it as a monologue.
Yeah,
I literally, it's like, literally, down the page. And then depending on how much time you have to, and then it's all about character. The words are just
yeah,
the canoe, the story. So, yeah. And I was a sports anchor before I was an actor and a play-by-play announcer. So names and recall are pretty good that way. I mean, the professions couldn't be any more different in every other way, but in that
yeah.
way, they're pretty similar.
As far as being able to speak on the spot, whenever you're reading a script, do you ever write little maybe improvisational lines for yourself that if you have time you might throw in there if the shoot is right?
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. I played Butch Cassidy a few years ago on a show, and it was the highlight of my life.
Wow.
And I remember the director. He was a great director, but he was one of those directors that was like, "Hey, whatever you want to do." And the blocking was really loose. He'd just say, "Okay, so Grayson's going to come in. He's going to rob the bank. He's going to say something really cool here, and then he's going to run out with the money." And at one side, he was like, "That's amazing," but the other side is crap in your pants because you're like, "I better have
Yeah.
something really." So that night, I'd go back to the hotel and I'd write down some alts, and I've been doing it ever since. I think it's good to have, and I think, when you're on set on the day, like you do the work, right? You do the work, you write the lines, you have all those things like a play-by-play game. How much of that research are you actually going to use? Not much,
Right.
but and you want to be able to be present, and nothing's ever going to be the way you thought it was. You thought you were sitting down, now you're standing up, now you're on a motorcycle, and it's like that's sort of the excitement of shooting, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite movie cop performance?
Wow, that's a great question, man. Okay, so the first one that comes to mind is the motorcycle cop at Vacation, the original Vacation, where the dog's leash.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
so,
Cool.
remember that?
Yeah, it makes me cringe every time.
And
But it
Jamie
is funny
Da's
though.
trying to like mock his compassion. He's like, yeah, poor Pooch kept up for a little while.
I don't
Uh,
know what it is about motorcycle cops because they have the Dumb and Dumber motorcycle cop too, where he drinks a bodily fluid, and so I don't. They get a bad rap, the motorcycle cops.
yeah, I mean, all the Reno 911 guys stand out. I think. Motorcycle cop performance or God, a cop performance. I mean, I guess Sly Stallone in Copland,
Oh yeah, that's true.
right?
Wonderful
He
movie.
gained like 50 pounds, and that was a pretty good role.
Yeah, it was a nice departure for him, but still sticking to what we love about him. So yeah, is there a role of yours that you are like dying itching to return to one day?
Uh, well, Butch Cassidy would be.
Yeah,
I don't think I stopped smiling for about a year after that shoot.
yeah,
Robbing banks and trains, and riding horses out of town, and that was just it was pure ecstasy. But Robert Durst was a lot of fun.
oh yeah,
Robert Durst was a lot of fun. What a weird guy. And he passed away recently, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah. So that would be a fun return. Yeah, those two stand out as just really fun. They're departures. They're departures. I think as actors, you have more fun dressing up and you get the accent and have some fun that way. I
yeah.
think it's more fun.
Is there a pleasure in being more wild than you would ever really be allowed to be in real life?
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, but well, it's an interesting question, right? Because as a director on the other side of the camera, I'm always saying, Michael, you're the most interesting character you'll ever play, right?
Yeah,
So I want to see what Michael's going to do in the dark alley versus the 16 ninjas.
right.
Not what Deadpool would do, but what Michael would do, because that's going to be the original. And that's and my mom, who's an ex-actress from the 60s, she did the Green Hornet and Ozzy and
Wow.
Harriet and stuff. She gave me that advice too. She said, go back to you. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not as interesting as this or that. And it's an interesting thing, the circle you sort of take as an actor, both to try and get the role, right? Because you're trying to get to work. And then
Right.
at the same time, you want to honor your truth or whatever. I mean, that's the coolest part, I guess, is you take you take a character, and then part of you is going to come through regardless, and it's that synthesis that makes it kind of this. It's different every time, right? But some of Michael, some of Matt, some of Tyler is going to come through no matter what. So
Oh, I absolutely love that. I think that's wonderful advice. In accordance with that, I wanted to ask you about your production company. Going back to somebody's essence of their self. Grayson Berry Productions is really fascinating and inspiring to learn all about. You guys focusing on making passion projects a reality. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
absolutely, the advice you always give actors coming up is make your own stuff. You hear it all the time. We have the technology, we have the phones. One of the films in our anthology that's on Amazon and Google Play and soon Tubi, called Vortex, the Film Anthology, was shot entirely with an iPhone. But what we didn't know was that evidently there's all of this inner working technology in the iPhone that can be enhanced.
Right.
The audio, the video. So we had a tech guy that was on set that was able to capture all that. So um, all that to say, man, I'm not good at sitting around and waiting for the phone to ring.
Hmm.
So, during the pandemic, we just, I think my wife looked at me and she's like, I'm really tired of you being around the house.
Yeah.
And I said, I agree. And I called Thomas Ryan Ward, who's my creative partner and the best creative partner I've ever had. And he
Yeah.
said, let's just go. Let's just that whole leap of faith, Indiana Jones, Last Crusade thing. Let's just shoot what we can shoot when we can shoot it, and we became Weekend Warriors. And it started out as this Nine Lives was the original title, and
Yeah.
then we couldn't stay cat food forever, so we had to switch over to Vortex. But on set, Michael, you'll hear people say things, happy accidents. You'll hear
Yeah.
that term a lot, right? I feel like Vortex, a film anthology, is just like one big happy accident. like everybody sort of loves Tesla, especially now. It's very timely, and so we
Mhm.
sprinkle these wonderful breadcrumbs for those who care about the legend of Tesla, and that's that rivalry that he had with Edison, you know,
Right.
and sort of just heightened that a bit, and then throw in the multiverse, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's not Lawrence of Arabia, we know that, but it's a whole lot of fun. And if that's what you're looking for, entertainment, which I feel like we're sort of coming back to, right, with Stranger Things,
Yeah.
Cobra Kai. Let's just have some fun, man. Let's just have some fun.
Yeah. I don't think it has to be Lawrence of Arabia. It just has to be Vortex, and it's perfect as it is. It's awesome. I was just going to ask you about Vortex and sort of like the inspiration, because I'm a big fan. We're all big fans of anthology films, and I don't think we actually get enough of them. So I love that you guys were able to do it. What was kind of the inspiration of combining the disparate stories but threading them together?
Well, the honest answer is we were trying to raise money. And my theory was, if I can gather this really great creative team or network of people who are great writers, who have wonderful films, then we're going to have a big network to go generate crowdfunding, etc.
Yeah.
Didn't work out that way. but at least, it's not neither here nor there, but that's what happens, right? When you take on a project, Michael, I think there's those that want to get behind and marry it, and then there's those who are like, maybe the next one or whatever. And so
Right.
we love anthologies. I grew up on Creepshow.
Yeah.
Creepshow 1 and 2 were, Tales from the Crypt, and then Twilight Zone, for sure. The Hitcher, which is a show maybe you guys have or haven't heard of. There was a show on HBO called The Hitcher. It did 2 or 3 seasons where the guy would roll into your town and then a story would unfold.
Right.
Anyway, we love that. And the great part is, if you don't like this one, it's gonna be over in a couple of minutes anyway, right?
That's what I love. And, I think short fiction, short films don't always get enough love, but it's nice because, like you said, it's like, all right, if you're not into this one, there's another one coming around the bends. Well, we don't want to take up too much more of your time. So, if I may ask a last question, I just wanted to wonder if you have any exciting projects on the horizon.
Yeah, so we're in pre-production right now for our next feature called Celebration Day, which is Dazed and Confused meets American Beauty, entirely based on my far too adventurous adolescence, growing up in the early '90s. And I tell you, man, like they say, trauma plus time equals comedy.
Hmm.
And I think that's the essence of it. And then the more I dig into it, it's funny how this works, right? The further I get away from that time, that was because we were all teenagers, we all had more freedom than we've ever had in our lives, but no education on how to really capitalize on it. So you're sort of chasing your tail, and things are happening. But the early '90s, man, that was really the last, I think, rebellious time in our history.
Hmm.
And I didn't think about it when I wrote it, but now I'm going back, and everything was like, anti-mainstream, and everything was, as high schoolers, pop music was the devil, and it was Led Zeppelin, it was Soundgarden, that was our church, was that music, Nirvana, and seeing those bands live and being in the mosh pits, and the chemicals, of course, that went along with that. So we've sort of squeezed that into a 24-hour time period. We're in the process of, we shot a sizzle reel. We're in the process of raising money, which is the hardest part. But that's the goal. And then maybe a show, an episodic, where we go into the lives of these teenagers every week and see a different, just complete mishap.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait for that. Well, thank you so much. Was there anything you wanted to say that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet?
Vortexanthology.com is our website. wanted to give a quick thank you to my creator, Thomas Ryan Ward, and then Rafael Marchetta was the other director in Vortex and Anthology. Without those guys, it doesn't happen. And collaboration is so hard, because there's ego gets involved and all that fun stuff. And having those two guys as my partners has been just a dream come true. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys. So can you guys tell me a little bit about how you guys got the podcast together and stuff before we jump off?
Matt, you go ahead. It was your idea.
Wasn't my idea. I can't really
It was,
remember.
yeah.
Well, we started out, we'd go to the movies together a lot, and we'd go out into like the parking lot, and we'd hang out in the parking lot for a solid half hour at least, just like talking about our thoughts on the movie, just like riffing back and forth. And I think one of the times there was this other group of people that I'm pretty sure they were recording a podcast. They had like a microphone sitting on like the hood of their car and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, if these people can record a podcast from the parking lot of the Cinemark, why can't we do it? And we have the material. We're always riffing about these movies. So then we kind of just formulated a plan, got the equipment together, and kind of came up with a bit of a structure. And kind of, I like to think we've been winging it, but learning as we go. So
That's
it's
awesome.
been a good time though.
Are you guys aspiring writers, actors, all of the above? Individual?
Yeah, I'm a screenwriter and a novelist and all that kind of stuff, and just waiting for somebody to notice.
Amen, man.
Yeah.
And Tyler and Matt, you guys too?
Yeah.
I've dipped my hand into screenwriting. I've kind of started it. That would be my dream, but I don't know. Definitely sticking with it, seeing what happens.
Right on.
Mhm.
Well, it was awesome meeting you guys, and love to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Be on the
Definitely.
lookout for those projects, and thank you so much for being here. This is incredible.